There is a kind of energy that doesn't feel toxic. It feels safe. It feels polite. It feels good manners and emotional intelligence. But psychologically, it can quietly do something very different. It can make attraction disappear without conflict, without arguments, without any obvious mistake. And the strange part is this: most men never see it happening in real time. They only notice the shift when it's already too late. The texts get shorter. The replies get slower. The emotional spark fades. So here's the real question. How can being too respectful actually reduce romantic interest? In this video, you're going to understand the hidden psychology behind what I call polite energy, the pattern where kindness, agreeableness, and emotional safety slowly turn into romantic invisibility. This is not about becoming rude. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding how attraction actually responds to energy, boundaries, and emotional polarity. We'll break down real psychological principles like signaling theory, attachment dynamics, and emotional framing in a way that actually applies to real dating situations. And by the end, you'll see something very clearly: why some men stay respected, but never fully desired. And more importantly, how to shift that. Imagine a man who always agrees, always adapts, always says it's fine even when something slightly bothers him. At first, it feels peaceful, easy, no tension, but over time, something subtle happens in her mind. She starts predicting him completely. There is no emotional surprise, no contrast, no edge. Psychologically, attraction thrives on what is slightly unpredictable, not chaotic, but alive. When someone becomes emotionally flat predictable, the brain stops scanning for novelty. This is linked to reward prediction systems in psychology. If everything is expected, emotional engagement drops. So what's the shift? You don't stop being kind, but you stop removing your own preferences just to maintain harmony. You let your reactions be real. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes I actually don't like that, because predictability without polarity doesn't create desire. And when a man becomes emotionally readable in every moment, attraction starts to sleep. Now here's where it gets more interesting, because the next layer is even more invisible: transition. But predictability alone isn't the full story. Sometimes it's not what you do, it's what your presence communicates without words. There's a specific moment in early dating where many men start proving themselves emotionally. They respond instantly, they agree too quickly, they over-explain, they try to make her feel understood in every sentence. On the surface, it looks caring, but psychologically, it creates what social psychologists call asymmetrical investment signaling. In simple terms, it signals that her approval matters more than your own internal standard. A real-life example: she says something slightly uncertain like, "I'm not sure if I'm free this weekend." And instead of staying grounded, he immediately bends. "It's okay, I can adjust anything. Just tell me what works for you." What she unconsciously feels is not comfort, but imbalance. Attraction often requires a sense that both people are choosing, not one person orbiting the other. So what should you do instead? You stay calm, you stay open, but you don't collapse your structure. "I'd like to see you this weekend. If not, we can plan another time." Same respect, different energy. One is grounded desire, the other is emotional chasing disguised as politeness. And the brain reads the difference instantly. Transition. But even when men fix validation habits, there's another layer that quietly kills attraction without anyone noticing. Here's something most people misunderstand. Women don't lose attraction because a man is respectful. They lose attraction when respect replaces boundaries. Let's break that down. A man can be extremely polite. He listens. He supports. He never interrupts. He never challenges anything. But if he never expresses limits, preferences, or disagreement, he becomes emotionally non-resistant. And non-resistance feels safe, but not engaging. Think of it like this: a conversation where nothing ever pushes back emotionally becomes flat. In attachment psychology, healthy tension creates connection, not conflict, tension. A moment where he says calmly, "I see it differently," or "that doesn't really work for me," introduces structure. Without it, interaction becomes one-directional emotional flow. And over time, she doesn't feel challenged in a healthy way. And attraction needs challenge the way lungs need air. So the shift is simple but powerful. You stop avoiding emotional edges just to stay easy to deal with. You become someone who is kind but not internally flexible to everything. Because politeness without boundaries is not attractive. It's emotionally weightless. Transition. And now we get to the part most men misunderstand completely. Because it feels like the opposite of what they were taught. A man can say all the right things and still disappear emotionally. Not physically, emotionally. This happens when his entire communication becomes centered on not disturbing her feelings. He filters every sentence. He softens every opinion. He removes any sharpness from his expression. Over time, something subtle happens. His presence loses contrast. Psychologically, attraction relies on contrast. Masculine, feminine polarity, certainty, flow, groundedness, emotion. When everything is softened, there is nothing to feel against. Imagine music without rhythm changes. It becomes background noise. This is where polite energy becomes invisible energy. And invisibility is the real danger, not rejection, because rejection still means impact. Invisible means no emotional imprint. So what changes everything here? You start speaking from presence, not permission. You don't ask internally, is this okay to say? You ask, is this true for me? That one shift restores polarity without aggression. And ironically, it makes communication feel more alive, not less respectful. Transition. But even this is not the deepest layer. There is one final pattern that explains why all of this matters more than men realize. Here's a counterintuitive truth most people never consider. Many relationships don't lose attraction because something bad happens. They lose attraction because nothing emotionally significant keeps happening. So let me ask you this. If someone experienced you exactly the same way every day, no emotional contrast, no boundaries, no shifts in energy, why would their brain stay romantically engaged? And this is where everything starts to make sense. There is a difference between emotional safety and emotional depth. Safety is comfort. Depth is engagement. Many men aim for safety alone. They become stable, agreeable, always available. But emotional psychology shows that long-term attraction requires depth, which includes emotional honesty, self-direction, and internal grounding. A real scenario. A man becomes so careful not to upset her that every interaction feels smooth but hollow. No emotional highs, no real differences in perspective, no moments of, I didn't expect you to say that. At first, she feels relaxed. But relaxation is not the same as attraction. Over time, the mind starts categorizing him as safe companion energy rather than romantic energy. And once that category forms, it is very hard to reverse without a shift in behavior. So what restores depth? Not drama, not unpredictability for the sake of chaos, but emotional authenticity, saying what you actually think, allowing small disagreements, not rushing to repair every moment of silence, because depth comes from being fully present, not perfectly agreeable. Transition. And when all of this comes together, something deeper starts to reveal itself. At the core of this entire dynamic is something most men were never taught directly. You are not losing attraction because you are kind. You are losing it because your kindness is sometimes used to avoid standing fully as yourself. And when a man slowly edits himself to be easier to receive, he also becomes harder to desire. Not because women consciously decide this, but because human psychology is constantly reading signals of presence, confidence, and internal structure. And here's the truth that can feel uncomfortable at first. Real connection is not built on removing all friction. It is built on the ability to stay yourself, even when it creates a small moment of tension. That is where emotional respect deepens into attraction. And without that, relationships don't crash dramatically. They fade quietly, into politeness, into distance, into, he's a great guy, But something is missing. If this resonated with you, you already recognize that this is not about becoming someone else. It's about removing the habit of disappearing inside politeness. Because attraction doesn't respond to perfection. It responds to presence. Let me ask you this. Where do you think men lose their presence the most? In texting, in conversations, or in emotional availability? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them. And in the next video, we'll go deeper into something even more important. Why emotional consistency alone is not enough to keep attraction alive over time. Until then, stop trying to be perfectly understood, start being fully present.